She threw away the motel key.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. And Tom, this is actually our first show since I don't even know, you can't call it the debacle in the desert. That name has been taken. The referee screw job in Glendale. Does that roll off the tongue?
The Montreal screw job in Arizona. I think that's definitely the way to go with it.
Yes, I like that we can bring wrestling into the show, Tom. And without you kicking and screaming, it's a plus.
I'm such a
Did you even know? Yes, I said, do you even know what the Montreal screw job is? Or is that just a term you know, but you don't know the background behind it?
It involved Bret Hart, and then listen as my sentence kind of trails off into nothing.
Don't worry, I'll add the rest of the story in there for you, post-production. So yes, this is our first show in over a week since the instant reaction after the game. This is my fault. I've been under the weather. I got back. We returned from Arizona on Monday, and in the middle of my second beer Wednesday night, I started getting these shivers, and then I've been dealing with it ever since. And apparently it's going around, whatever this is, and a lot of people have it. So I'm not suffering alone, which is good. But yeah, so I am trying to power through Tom. Tom's not at 100% either, so don't let him fool you. But we are here because it's been an awful long time. And Tom, stuff is happening.
Yeah, the off season is supposed to be the quiet time of year, and somehow lots of stuff is happening. Good stuff, bad stuff that we think is happening but hasn't happened yet. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff going on, and this is supposed to be the quiet time of year.
So we'll start with recruiting. Ohio State on Wednesday picked up a commitment from Donovan Jackson, the number one offensive guard in the nation out of Texas. The number 57 player overall. Is it the same school as Demetrius Knox, Episcopal, Bel Air, Texas? I don't know. I know there's a lot of Episcopals out there.
Demetrius Knox was Saint something or other, I think, from Texas. But yeah, it's Donovan Jackson is a really interesting prospect because he's got some good flexibility where he could play at tackle, he could play at guard. He plays left tackle for his high school team, and his highlight reel is hilarious. Like sometimes there's like jaw-dropping highlight reels like Jamison Williams. Donovan Jackson's is just straight hilarious because it's like mid-level Texas football. It's like I think he's class 4, which is like right in the middle of Texas football. So it's not like the super big schools like Jackson Smith and Jigba was playing. But it's still Texas high school football, so these are still pretty serious kids. And his whole highlight reel is just him just completely ruining people's days. Just pancake block after pancake block. Here, watch him pancake two guys on one play, 10 yards apart from each other. It's really spectacular and worth a watch. I've got that embedded in this story on the front page of theozone.net. Just find the Donovan Jackson commitment video and take a few minutes to enjoy that.
It is interesting because there are times where he's like a pulling tackle and he just gets this, 10 yards head start on this poor, whoever it is, it's going to be a run support corner. And you've got guys 6'4", 305 pounds coming at him. And watching him move, I could see him playing tackle. I'm no longer one of these guys. If you're 6'4", you can't play offensive tackle. I saw Jamarco Jones do it for too well, And if Donovan Jackson, wherever he ends up, if he's destined to become a right tackle for the Buckeyes, I don't put that past him. I'm not going to get hung up on the height because he moves so well, but he's still going to get bigger as well. You look at his frame; and he's got room to grow. It's like you said. There's some fun offensive lineman highlight videos out there. I think one of my favorites of all time was like Mike Brewster, his junior highlights. It's as good as Beanie Wells junior highlights. There's some guys out there like that. So he's that's a big pickup. That's their shoot. They've got 6 guys in the top 100 in the 2021 class, which is now rated number 1 overall in the nation. And even Donovan Jackson, number 57 overall, is Ohio State's 5th ranked recruit right now, behind Ben Christman, who is the number 10 offensive tackle, rates ahead of the number 1 offensive guard. But whatever, I'm not gonna sit here and throw shade. But yeah, Ben Christman is another top offensive lineman, and then Marvin Harrison, the number 54 player overall, number 8 receiver. Kyle McCord, the quarterback, number 33 overall, number 5 quarterback, pro-style quarterback. And then, of course, Jack Sawyer, 5-star, number 2 player overall from Pickerington. And and then I didn't even mention Jaden Ballard, the receiver behind Donovan Jackson at number 73 overall. So there's some Ryan Day just continues. And not that anybody should be surprised, but I guess it's always good when you see them go out of state, Tom, and get somebody that everybody else wanted, including the home state schools.
Yeah, Texas wanted him. Texas Tech wanted him. I think he had an offer from Alabama, LSU, Michigan, Penn State. Like you go through the list of like, what are the big schools that you would want to be battling for a kid and beat them? And it's like, yep, they're all there. So. And Donovan Jackson does have ties to the state of Ohio. He has some family in the Cincinnati area. So he's not, this is not a kid who's set foot in Ohio twice and just fell in love with Ohio State. He does have some family ties to the state. So it's not, it's not a complete, true, total out-of-state pull. But much like Demetrius Knox, where he had, long-standing ties to the state of Ohio and just happened to go to high school in Texas, Donovan Jackson is right in that mold.
And then on Tuesday, the Buckeyes got a commit from 3-star Cincinnati LaSalle safety Jaylen Johnson, 6'1", 205, the number 18 safety in the nation per 24/7 Sports Composite, number 421 player overall, number 11 player in the state. The safety situation at Ohio State as it is now, like when I look at Jaylen Johnson's highlights, I don't see a deep safety. I see the bullet, the safety / linebacker that may have a place in Ohio State's defense when Jaylen Johnson finally gets here and Pete Werner gets the heck out of here. It stops ruining it for everybody. But Johnson he comes up really quickly. He triggers well. I don't know. Like I said, I don't see him as a deep safety. I don't know how much range he has. I know he gets downhill quickly and is a solid tackler in his highlights, but everybody is. So we'll see where he goes in terms of just where he ends up on defense. I expect it to be in that bullet already at 6'1", 205. I think that 6'1" is probably generous, but he's a very early offer. So that tells you how much Ohio State likes him. It's not one of these things where it's December of 2020 and they're looking for somebody to fill out the class. I mean, they're accepting his commitment right now, which unless they back out of it later on, I mean, there's no reason to suspect that they will. So they like him. And he's not the only, top safety in Ohio. There's still A.J. Kirk, who is Mike Doss's little brother. So the fact that they went ahead and accepted this commitment now tells you that he's part of the plans and kind of fits that mold of the bullet more than the safety, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, and that was something that I wanted to bring up because there was a lot of why is Ohio State reaching for the number 11 player in the state this early in the cycle? And if they're throwing out a committable offer to a person in state this early in the cycle, then they really believe in him. Because you can sometimes get away with, in November changing your mind and going, actually, I think it might be better if you went and looked for someone else, looked for another school. You can get away with that with a kid from Kansas or a kid from Oregon or somewhere like that. You don't want to tick off an in-state school, especially a school like DeSalle in Cincinnati, which has produced some talent over the years. That's Ohio State. I think that was Drew Chrisman's high school. They've pulled some talent out of LaSalle. You don't want to tick off an in-state school. So if they're taking an in-state kid this early in the cycle, then it's someone that they have a very high degree of confidence that they can, that can play at the level they need him to play. And that's, that should answer all of your questions if you're hung up on the recruiting, on the ranking number with him, because he's number 421 overall and the 18th ranked safety in the class. I think at this point, Mark Pantoni and the Ohio State coaching staff has earned the benefit of the doubt on evaluating talent and bringing in top talent. So, and this is someone that had an offer, I believe, before Jeff Hafley left. So this is someone that probably had the Jeff Hafley stamp of approval. So that should be good enough for you.
Yeah, and like you said, he comes from a power program. He's not some. There's like different levels to, I guess, the way you look at the recruiting rankings, and you're like, well, why go after a 3-star? And there's early offers like this. That's one stage. And there's they earned it at camp, and they saw him in person and decided they really liked him at camp, and so that's another one. But I think when you offer them this early, that's even higher than the camp offer, because they've already seen enough. They don't need to see him face to face, and like, what can you do while we're staring at you? They've already seen enough on the field. So yeah, they seem to be thrilled. And Mark Pantoni tweeted out boom, so they are happy, and Buckeye fans should be too. The third commitment that the Buckeyes have had over the last 10 days since we last had a show was Sam Hart, which was as we were getting back from Phoenix?
That was the plane landed for our layover in St. Louis, and on the way back from Phoenix, and as we turned our Wi-Fi back on after the plane landed, there was news that Sam Hart had committed. So that was one that I got to write in the airport in St. Louis. So that was fun. You always get these. I'll always associate certain players with like where I was when their commitment happened. Luke Whippler, the center for the 2020 class, committed while I was on vacation in San Francisco. I was standing online at the kids' playground in the left field area of the San Francisco Giants Stadium, waiting for my kid to come down the giant Coke bottle slide in left field, and I'm writing this article on my phone. So that's always fun. Usually we have at least some sense that a commitment's coming. Every once in a while, one of these will catch us off guard, and inevitably, it's like we're in the least convenient possible place. And forever, Luke Whippler will remind me of the left field of the San Francisco Giants stadium, and Sam Hart will forever remind me of the St. Louis airport for some reason.
Yeah, so forgive us for not being totally prepared for the Aurora, Colorado recruiting beat on Sam Hart, the number 15 tight end in the nation, number 365 player overall, 3-star guy. But then I've finally looked at his highlights 25 minutes ago, and they're really impressive. They're very Jeremy Ruckert-like. And Hart is a big target who will then make plays after the catch, which I think clearly they like right now in this offense, and maybe we'll see some of it next year. But yeah, just a big target, a big athlete who is clearly catches the defense off guard with his ability to get past them, and he's big enough to push them down and fast enough to get around them, and an interesting prospect. And I don't know that they'll go with 2 tight ends in this class, but he sure seems like a pretty good start, and just another weapon for Kyle McCord as they continue to, because they are struggling for pass receivers in this football program, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, when you can't recruit wide receivers at all, which has obviously been a huge issue for Brian Hartline recently. I mean, they barely got 4 of the top 15 receivers in the country in the last class, and
True.
Only have Jaden Ballard, who's another top 100 player, committed for 2021. So when you're really struggling in that area, like Ohio State clearly is, you have to look in kind of non-traditional places,
like Colorado.
Like Colorado, exactly. And Hart, like watching his highlights, he looks like a wide receiver. He runs like a wide receiver. Like he very much looks like the tight end that they'll split out. Like they have the kind of inline tight ends that, like the Jake Hausmans or guys like that who are kind of more like the run blocking or pass blocking kind of tight end. Sam Hart, I mean, right now he's listed as 6'5", 225, which is basically that's basically the size of one of their big X wide receivers. Like, even though he's bigger than Benjamin Victor, like heavier than Benjamin Victor, but he's like that size or that Jeremy Ruckert size where they'll just split him out in that slot. Like he very much fits the profile of the kind of guy who will, get 2 passes a game thrown to him, but probably do something pretty great with one of them, kind of like Ruckert does. You watch his highlights, you can just see Ohio State scheming ways to get him open, kind of up the seam, and have him make some plays for Kyle McCord or whoever his quarterback in 2021 and beyond.
While you're talking about this future quarterback and beyond, did you happen to watch the OSU Cribs or whatever with C.J. Stroud and Legend Cavazos and Julian Fleming and Court Williams?
Yes, I saw. I honestly did not watch the entire thing, but I saw. It wasn't very long. I saw enough of it to get a sense for it. It just made me sad because I think the last time they did one of those was 3 years ago, and it was J.K. Dobbins, and he was explaining how his roommate Tate Martell didn't ever seem to be there. So he was just J.K. Dobbins showing you around his empty apartment by himself, and it just got real nostalgic.
But didn't have a video like Mike Weber was also there to play video games with him or something?
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, I mentally just never got past the Tate Martell part of that video.
The reason I bring it up is like I hyper-analyze any type of quarterback interplay in any of these videos from Ohio State, and it goes back to when one of the very first of these podcasts, and I don't even know that you're a part of it yet, and so don't go back and listen to any of them. In fact, I've probably deleted the first 25 or 30 of them. But from watching like Joe Burrow in the background of videos and how he would react and how like he would always be just as boisterous as JT Barrett. And so it doesn't surprise me like that Joe Burrow becomes this larger than life leader that everybody loves when you see how he reacts in everyday situations when, the camera isn't necessarily on him, but you just see him. And so then I'm watching CJ Stroud just to, for any type of insight, and immediately he wants to restart the video. He's already taken control of things and, as this leader, and then while they're all talking at the end and he's conducting the interviews, and then he takes it on himself to talk about how he's feeling and how, he can rely on everybody else. And it was just, for me, it's interesting to see how quarterbacks have to be leaders. And here's a guy like day 2 of his dorm life already kind of, I wouldn't say a leader, but sort of taking control or taking charge. And I think that's what you want. Obviously you don't need him taking charge on the practice field or whatever, but just to see this natural leader come out. And I'll be interested to watch these videos as we see more of Jack Miller and CJ Stroud, because these guys are going to be tied together until they're not. And so just any little insight I can get on any of these quarterbacks, I think is interesting. And this is the only kind of insight we're going to get until the spring.
Yeah, I mean, we won't get to talk to CJ Stroud. Usually they make the true freshman early enrollees available on early signing day, if not before. So we should get to talk to him a little bit before then. And that's usually you get a pretty good idea who's, of a guy's personality. Like some guys are just like totally overwhelmed by it, and some guys are just very much into it and, and kind of roll right into the college football persona. I got the same vibe from him. And it's funny when you see a quarterback like that, it's like, well, if this guy can throw a good, accurate ball, that means he's a leader. And if he throws an inaccurate ball, all of those same traits will mean that he's cocky and bossy and tries to make it all about him. So I think we need to wait on evaluating him personality wise until we see him throw this spring. But yeah, I mean, you certainly get that vibe. Like you don't want the quiet quarterback. Like Dwayne Haskins was a little bit of the sort of reluctant leader, and Justin Fields last year, I think maybe at least at the start of the year, maybe a little bit like that, just because he was the new guy. You kind of want that a little bit loud, a little bit cocky kind of quarterback. That's never a bad thing if the quarterback ends up being a leader. And C.J. Stroud's not going to be a leader on this team this year, but if he starts getting himself in that position where once Justin Fields goes, maybe he's the guy who takes the starting reins in 2021, and having that kind of personality, and again, if you have the talent, then that kind of personality, people find it endearing, and it draws people to you, and it kind of makes you a natural leader.
It will be interesting when we do get to talk to them, assuming we do. I mean, that's our assumption because it happens every year. But what it is at the WAC on the indoor practice field, like there'll be this time maybe 14 tables set up with each of the early enrollees, assuming they're all available and they don't have class. And then we're there for maybe 30 minutes getting to talk to whoever we want. And I'm just wondering, because you'll have Jack Miller and you'll have CJ Stroud, and I'll be looking like, how many does this guy have at his table? How many does this guy have at his table? And you'll wonder, like, if there's like 12 people at CJ Stroud's table and nobody at Jack Miller's table, and Jack Miller is looking over, or there's nobody at CJ Stroud's table, there's a lot of ways for these guys to get annoyed with each other.
Yeah, I love all your different ways of analyzing and reading into these guys' personality. This is like modern day college football media phrenology. Like this has nothing to do with anything, but the slope of his I don't remember enough Mr. Burns phrenology lines. Sorry, reading the tea leaves on these guys before we really get a chance to know them personally or hear much about them personally is always kind of interesting, because you sort of form these initial opinions, and sometimes they're right and sometimes they're not. But this is kind of all we have to go on, because when you talk to people, you can talk to coaches or whatever, and they'll kind of, you can almost tell there's like a boilerplate answer, like, oh, he's drinking through a fire hose right now, and oh, he's just sort of learning, and he
doesn't know what he doesn't know.
Good listener, yeah, he doesn't know what he doesn't know. Like there's like all these like boilerplate cliches that you get when you're talking to people. Once you get a little further, like by the time you get into fall camp, you can generally get a sense. You can sort of start sorting the cliches out. Like there's the cliches that are this guy's going to be great, the cliches that are this guy's in the way over his head and it's going to be a while. But yeah, in the spring, it's very much reading tea leaves and interpreting weird stuff like that. So
are you saying, like, so there is nobody over at Jack Miller? Should I go over, introduce myself? Hey, Jack, Tony Gerdeman with the Ozone. Can you please remove your hat? And then I'll just like put my hands on top of his head, and he'll be like, well, what do you do? I'm like, shh, no, don't say anything. No, shh. Oh, this is very, very interesting.
I've learned a lot. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, have a great day. Yeah, so we'll see, and then go over to do the same thing with CJ Stroud while he's surrounded by a bunch of people, and I'm sure this will go over great, and in the videos will be the hits will be in the millions. So that's
you'll definitely get invited back for the next interview session. That's for sure.
Anyway, so that's signing day, which is always we learn. I mean, it's fun. It's interesting. We get to talk to a lot of guys that we probably won't get a chance to talk to for another couple of years. I think that was one of the first times. That was the first time we got to talk to Tate Martell, and then the next time we get to talk to him, it was, I don't know, the 11 for 11 game or whatever. Who knows?
It was in the locker room after the Cotton Bowl, because there were. See? I was one of about 10 people around him. That's yeah. It's like certain bowl games you'll have like a media day, like this year during the before the Fiesta Bowl, we got to talk to a whole bunch of like the freshmen, and it was just all the guys we haven't talked to since early signing day, or since they, sometimes even the guys who arrived during the summer, we don't get to talk to them until, if they arrive in the summer, we don't get to talk to them until literally after the season. So yeah, it's for quite a while. We'll get our initial impressions, and then for quite a while that'll be it as far as firsthand interactions with some of these guys go for close to a year.
But that won't stop us from passing down judgments.
Absolutely, and our judgments, as always, are final
and sometimes correct. Anyway,
yeah.
The big NFL declarations from Ohio State: Chase Young, Jeff Okudah, J.K. Dobbins, all leaving early, and I expect all three will be in the first round. Of course, J.K. Dobbins being the one question mark in there. I saw he was on he's like somebody's top running back with some top draft analyst or whatever. And it's like, I don't know what more people need to see from J.K. Dobbins. He's sure you probably want to see him run into 4.4s, but he's been as productive as any back. Never gets tired, gets better with more carries. And yeah, he kind of took it easy at points this season, and what wasn't a 30 guy in the middle of the season. He waited until the end of the season, but that was that's a product of the offense. He catches the ball, he's elusive, he's tough, he's strong. He's just not the biggest guy, but Tom, I don't think that really matters. He is a workhorse, and he's as productive as anybody in the draft.
Yeah, I don't know what else you would have needed to see out of him. He was really remarkably healthy for someone who carried the ball as much as he did at Ohio State. He didn't have the kind of nagging injury issues that Mike Weber had. And, he got hurt in that last game, but, I think you can kind of, that was kind of basically the first time I feel like we saw him really seriously dinged up during a game. And he was still productive after that. Like, it wasn't like that kept him out. So, yeah, I'm just looking at one. I don't know if you heard a pop-up earlier. That was the lovely folks at CBSSports.com who really needed to send me a pop-up video. They have J.K. Dobbins going 29th to the Kansas City Chiefs in the first round. So, yeah, I mean, this has, this one has Chase Young going second overall to the Redskins, Jeff Okudah going third overall to the Detroit Lions, and I've seen that combination a few times as well. So, I mean, if you have two of the top three picks in the draft. I mean, we see that NFL draft video that they show on the scoreboard when the recruits come in every week, and it's Joey Bosa and Eli Apple and Ezekiel Elliott and all those guys going in the NFL draft. They're going to have to recut one if they have Chase Young and Jeff Okudah going 2-3 this year.
And I think all three of those guys made the right choice. And I also agree with the guys who returned that they made the correct choice with Sean Wade, Thayer Munford, Wyatt Davis, and Josh Myers. And let's start with Sean Wade first. And we won't get into all of the different math that is involved in Wade's decision. The easiest way to look at it is I talked to one scout who said he was probably, from what he was being told, you're looking at a second round at best because there wasn't enough video of him as an outside corner, and there's much more video of other guys who were also good enough to be a first round corner. So you're not necessarily going to move him ahead of them because they are proven and he is not. So if you're looking at a second round contract, there's just the comparison when he could be, I think we would all agree he could be just as good as Jeff Okudah, and look where Okudah is going to land, somewhere with a $35 million contract. That's like $25 million more than he's looking at potentially as a second rounder. So yeah, I completely agree with Sean Wade's decision to come back. Now you just have to hope for his sake that they find somebody who can play inside well enough to continue playing the style of defense.
Yeah, I mean, for Wade, this is very much a bet on yourself kind of move where, yes, you could go out and get $7-10 million this year, But if you really believe in yourself and you believe you can go play, put together that year on tape of covering, Nico Collins is back. Go cover Nico Collins again next year. Like that's your problem next year, not Jeff Okuda's. If you can put that year on tape, you can make yourself 28 and another $28 million, get up to that $35 million top 5 kind of pick range. I like the decision to come back there. I mean, that's for guys like for J.K. Dobbins. Like, if you're going to be a late first round pick and you're a running back, like, yep, go. Because the way the NFL values running backs right now, you're not going to be. It's very unlikely you're going to do something that's going to make you a top 5 pick next year.
Right.
Like if putting up a 2,000-yard season at Ohio State on this team against the caliber of opponents that they did, if that only gets you to the bottom of the first round, there's nothing you're going to do next year that's going to bump you up higher. And with the length of NFL running back careers, like, yep, go get that money, go get that bag. And but for Wade, like, there's a lot of upside there for Wade. Like, if you can, okay, now you can go be the next Jeff Okudah next year, because they came in, Okudah and Wade came in number 1 and number 2 in the nation as cornerbacks in that class of 2017. So it's like Wade has that raw talent and that the ability, and you saw what he can do this year. I mean, he is a remarkable athlete. He can run with the fast, speedy little slot guys. He's got the size to cover the outside guys. Go bet on yourself. He can make himself a whole lot of money this year. And that, you mentioned Ohio State finding a guy to cover that slot corner. That Wade coming back, that answers like the single biggest question for them is like, who's going to be that number 1 corner this year? Now, now you got to find the number 2 and the number 3 guys there if you want to keep running that defense. But, they have options. They've got Amir Reep. They've got Sevyn Banks. They've got Cameron Brown. Now you only need 2 of those 3 guys to really hit instead of needing to go 3 for 3 there. Right. And, you've got other guys, Tyreek Johnson and some of the younger guys there too, but you don't need to find 3 of those guys. Now you just need to find 2, and you need Josh Proctor to, turn into a reasonable facsimile of Jordan Fuller in the back of the defense, and then you can, then you can run that same defense and have something close to the same results next year.
I am really looking forward to seeing what he can do at outside corner, because he came in with all of these accolades, and we've seen what he can do playing inside. It's just, for me, I just want to see him be able to play what he came here to play. And we'll see how good he can be, because I don't know if you guys, we were talking about high school highlights before. Go back and watch Shaun Wade's, because that dude is a ball hawk. And he'd make plays on footballs and then do something afterwards on the return. So he's a guy that will definitely bear watching, and not just as a guy who, will shut down a receiver, but maybe as a guy who makes plays on the ball and maybe, puts a couple of touchdowns on the board for the Buckeyes this year. We'll see. 3 guys who will certainly help put many touchdowns on the board will be Thayer Munford, Wyatt Davis, and Josh Myers. And there was talk for a little while, like each of those guys could go. And when they all decided to return, that was as significant as, more significant probably than getting Shaun Wade to return. But at least with Shaun Wade, now you've got one of your starting secondary members. But to have 3 of the starting 5 back on the offensive line that's almost ideal, because to hope for more than that is, I think, greedy. Like, to hope you have 4 returners on the offensive line is kind of greedy. And to have these guys back where you've got 2 on the interior and a tackle, very established players, you already know, I think we already believe we know who will step in at right tackle with Nicholas Petit-Frere and left guard with Harry Miller. So there's already guys ready in the wings. And these 3 would seemingly allow this offense to hit the ground running from get-go. And the learning curve won't be there because they're just, you pick up right where they left off. And it's just a matter of, is there a running back that can handle the workload? And I'm sure they'll be paving the way for somebody. and now you just go find a running back to replace J.K. But those three, Tom, getting those guys back, that's huge for their national title hopes.
Oh yeah, because I mean this is a year when Ohio State cannot afford to come out of the gate slowly. 2019, like they had some games that were like, oh, Cincinnati's a pretty good team. They can't completely blow it, and they can't just completely stagger out of the gate and just plan on coasting to win that one. And they very clearly didn't. 2020, it's a whole different ball game because week 2 you're going to Oregon, and Eugene is a notoriously difficult place to play. That's a program that's rounding into form pretty impressively already. They're going to have to really hit the ground running, and being able to go on the road and protect Justin Fields, open up lanes for whoever that starting running back is. Like, you got to do all of that stuff because that Oregon defense is a lot more. This is not the classic pillowy, soft, Mr. Softy Pac-12 defense. Like, this is a much more physical, talented defense than you typically associate with Oregon or the Pac-12. So Ohio State's got to have that tough, physical offensive line that can just mash people up front the way they did this year. You have to get those three guys back. Like, all three of those were plausible NFL draft entries. Wyatt Davis especially, and Josh Myers. I mean, but both of those guys had very good seasons. Wyatt Davis, I think, graded out the best this year, but all of those guys plausibly could have left and probably could have, at least been top 3, top 4 round draft picks at the very least. Wyatt Davis is probably pushing first round. But to have all three of them back and know, like, that's your baseline. Those guys are probably going to get better next year. Harry Miller is going to be better next year. Nick Petit-Frere started a game. He was, clearly the 4th tackle on this team. But he started a game. He started the Northwestern game, and he was fine. He wasn't amazing, but he was fine. And, again, now a year getting first-team reps for him. That's all going to help. And, there are other guys on the team that could, push for that guard spot or push for, a spot if someone gets hurt. Matthew Jones at left guard. He was the backup to Jonah Jackson there this year. Gavin Cupp, 5th-year senior, he's back as well. So you've got quality depth now on that line, and that's just right now. That's where they are, and there's some questions as far as like the tackle depth this year, I think, and that's something they'll have to get sorted out in camp. And you see how Paris Johnson looks in camp. You don't ever want to start a true freshman tackle unless it's literally Orlando Pace. Mm-hmm. So. I think people are going to be rushing to pencil him into the starting lineup, and that's probably not going to be how it plays out. But, having an established offensive line up front, like that is a much bigger deal than finding a starting running back. You would much rather be going, well, we have running backs, let's figure out which one of these guys is the best, rather than, well, let's hope for the best with replacing some, half of the offensive line up front or 3/4 of the offensive line up front, because that's the kind of thing that can just blow up your season if you don't end up having the pieces you think you do.
Well, just imagine if J.K. is back, but none of those three guys were, and we're trying to just, well, who is the center now? And it's probably Harry Miller. Then who are the guards? And maybe it's Enoch Famahi as a redshirt, where Ryan Jacoby, where's Gavin Cupp, as you said. Now let's talk about tackles. And is DeJuan Jones ready? No, he's not, but I guess he better get ready. That's a less than ideal situation. So getting those three back makes things a lot easier for everybody. But Tom, Ohio State still doesn't have 10 assistant coaches. Are they going to go into the season with just 8?
I wonder if they can trade a couple of those assistant coach spots for a few extra scholarships so they can be over the 85 this year. I mean, maybe they can talk to the NCAA about it. I'm just thinking out loud here.
That's a good thought.
My guess would be they probably will fill those positions officially at some point between now and the kickoff of the Buffalo game. But
I say before spring.
Bold, spicy take from Mr. Gerdeman. Glad that the Martian death flu has not kept you down from bringing the heat today.
Sorry,
right on cue.
Yep.
All the indications are that Corey Dennis is going to take over as the quarterback coach for Mike Yurcich, and Kerry Combs is certainly the current leader for the replacing Jeff Hafley as the defensive backs coach, but neither of those has been announced. And at least on the Combs side, I think that may be related to Tennessee beating the New England Patriots last weekend in the wild card game.
I had somebody ask on the message board, hey, is it still looking like Kerry Combs? And I'm like, well, have you heard any peep about any other name? And if you haven't, there's a reason. And so, yeah, I think everything is just in a holding pattern. We were talking about why is there still a holding pattern with Corey Dennis, and our conjecture maybe just that they're waiting to announce both of these at the same time. And right now the holdup is Mike Vrabel's Tennessee Titans. But, a year ago I wrote, could Corey Dennis take over for Ryan Day before they hired Mike Yurcich? And there's some people are saying it's nepotism or whatever. But you have Ryan Day, who is clearly Urban Meyer called him the best quarterbacks coach he's ever had. So I'm not saying Corey Dennis isn't qualified to be given this job, but he will be overlooked by Ryan Day, and Ryan Day has entrusted him in the past with Dwayne Haskins while Urban Meyer was suspended in 2018, and Ryan Day had to watch the team and take over for everybody. It was Corey Dennis who was the quarterback's coach. And so just as Ryan Day had, a tryout, so did Corey Dennis. And clearly, it would seem that Ryan Day liked what he saw. The other interesting thing about this, the neat thing about this to me, and this is all with the belief that Corey Dennis is well qualified to be a coach here. Remember, Corey Dennis is the Urban Meyer and Shelley Meyer's son-in-law, and the father of their grandchild, and husband to their daughter. And 2 weeks ago, he was about to head out to Colorado State for his first position coach job with Steve Adazio, and then to possibly be staying in Columbus is kind of it's a huge gift to the Meyers. And I'm not saying it's not something that Corey Dennis hasn't earned. I'm just saying I'm sure the Meyers are extremely happy that this is going to take place, that their grandson is going to stay in town, their daughter is going to stay in town, their son-in-law is going to stay in town. Just imagine how happy they are with this. They're probably happier than Corey Dennis is.
Yeah, I mean, and if anything, if based on my parents' interactions with my kids, I'm sure that Shelley is most excited that Twitterless baby Troy is staying in town. That's
exactly
based on her Twitter account. That would certainly seem to be the indication that's her primary point of excitement on this. With Dennis, the nepotism things, you knew whenever he got hired, wherever he got hired, that was going to be. Until he is a head coach somewhere and a successful head coach somewhere, he is always going to be Urban Meyer's son-in-law, Corey Dennis. That's just kind of when they talk about what's going to be in the first paragraph of your obituary, that he is Urban Meyer's son-in-law, Corey Dennis, until he is a successful head coach somewhere, probably. But at this point, I think Ryan Day has established a pretty good track record that he can, develop talent and recognize quarterback talent. And as a result, I would think, having worked pretty closely with Corey Dennis for the last 3 years, he probably has a pretty good sense what kind of a quarterback coach Corey Dennis is, and how he's going to be in terms of helping to develop the quarterbacks. And I would imagine if Justin Fields did not have a good relationship with Corey Dennis, that might be something that might keep him from getting a job. So, the people who are making this decision have 3 years of track record with Corey Dennis of knowing who he is and how he does in terms of coaching and what he brings to the program. And if they think that's good enough, then that should certainly be good enough for you to give him the benefit of the doubt for the time being.
And there's a question of what kind of recruiter is he, but he's a young guy, and Ohio State already has their 2021 quarterback committed in Kyle McCord, so there'll be plenty of opportunity for those guys to build a relationship, and I'm sure they will. And, it'll be nice to get all of this done and taken care of, and then we can talk to both new coaches, whomever they may be, and bring you their thoughts to the people and let you know that they're all happy to be Ohio State Buckeyes. Tom, anything else before we call it a day?
Well, just so people know, I mean, Corey Dennis, I've had the chance to talk to him just a couple times, just kind of casually, and he is a very personable, friendly guy. Good sense of humor. He seems like the kind of guy who will probably do pretty well on the recruiting trail, because he played at Georgia Tech. He's a Division I athlete, and has now been part of this Ohio State passing attack during the most explosive time in not just the program's history, but basically in the country. This is the last 3 years. This has basically been the number 1 or number 2 passing attack in the country, outside of maybe Oklahoma for the last 3 years. And he's been here for it. So, he's got plenty of stuff to sell beyond just, hey, I know Urban Meyer. So that's, I think he is someone who I would bet on being pretty successful in the coaching business, just in terms of what little you've seen of him, sort of the endorsements, direct or indirect, of the people who have been around him and the results they've generated when he's been there.
We'll see, but I expect him to be just fine because Ryan Day really hasn't given us any reason to think that he won't be. Anything else, Tom, before we wrap it up and call it a day? Are you all set?
I think I'm all set. I think also that you're probably all set and ready to not be talking and ready to be back to free to cough whenever you want to.
I'm doing pretty well, I would say. We're going to have to get back on some sort of a schedule. This is the Buckeye Weekly podcast, so I would think that we will just continue to we'll have something every week for you for sure. We'll just have to sit down and get it situated, but we will do that, and we will keep you guys up to speed. But thank you all for listening. Make sure to check out the rest of the shows on the Ozone Radio Network with the Buckeye Sloopcast on Mondays and Fridays, Silver Bullets on Tuesdays, and us. We'll get to you. If you are interested in supporting us on Patreon, you can do that at patreon.com/Buckeye Weekly, where we will have ad-free episodes of every show and then bonus content throughout the month. And we thank you for supporting us there. And I think that's it. We will talk to you guys next week with whatever has happened in the Ohio State universe. Talk to you later.
We could steal a car and leave tonight. the morning.